SmartCustomer Spotlight podcast, which is where we invite industry experts to join us in shining light on today's business landscape and elevating your brand. I'm Sybil Chan from SiteJabber, and today's special guest is Laura Matthews, Managing Director of Agency Growth Strategy at Mirren Business Development. So Mirren is a firm that specializes in helping agencies scale up and capture greater client spend. But of course, I'm going to let Laura take the floor and tell us all about it. So Laura, it's great to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Sybil. I'm happy to be here.
Go ahead and tell us a little bit more about Mirren and what your role is there.
So Mirren is a training firm that works exclusively with agency teams. We train agencies of all types, sizes, and specialties, from small independent agencies to some of the largest holding company brands in the world. And fundamentally, all of our training and consultative work with agencies is focused on helping agencies grow. We take a really client-centric approach to agency growth, and we train on a couple of core topics: organic growth for client-facing team members, as well as new business training, things like pitching and RFPs and proactive prospecting. All of it is designed to help agency teams get better, more strategic, and more methodical about the way that they approach growth. And that really starts by understanding their client's business and understanding how to help their clients grow. The agency's business is going to grow when you're successfully delivering growth for your client brands.
Yeah, that's really exciting stuff for agencies that are looking for, best practices on connecting with more clients, making those quality client bases, accounts, all of the pieces that go into creating a successful agency. It seems Mirren has a hand in all of that.
Yeah, we work directly with agency teams. We do custom training one-on-one. So we'll do a deep dive discovery with an agency team to really understand how they operate, how they approach client presentations, pitch presentations, really understand what it is they need to focus on. And we'll work directly with their teams to walk them through a series of lessons and learnings that are designed to be scalable, efficient, easy to implement, new models and frameworks to help the entire agency team that goes through the training really get aligned to sort of the new processes, a more efficient way of doing things, breaking some of the molds of the status quo in the agency industry.
You mentioned breaking the status quo. So let's start with the status quo a little bit and kick off talking about the traditional agency model. We all know how it goes. Agencies chase those RFPs. You're fighting for pitches. You're kind of competing, win clients over, and you hope to land a new client maybe after fighting through all that. So what are your views on that? And is that something sustainable in today's landscape for finding clients?
Great question. Obviously, pitching business is part of a balanced agency pipeline, but it shouldn't be the only focus as you think about growing the agency and your only source of growth. The pitch process in the agency landscape today has become so commoditized and so competitive. I mean, you referenced it. It's kind of clawing your way through a fight to hopefully win, but a lot of agencies end up sinking a lot of resources into every pitch, not just time that the team is spending, but often hard costs and investments that the agency can't recoup. And you sink a lot of energy and morale from the team into those pitches as well. And when you don't win, that can impact the team and the agency overall. So pitching is still an important element of a balanced pipeline, but because it's so competitive, so commoditized, you've got procurement in the mix from many clients, a lot of hurdles to clear, a lot of hoops to jump through. What we've seen over the last several years has been a little bit of a shift away from RFP training, pitch training, which used to make up the bulk of our training engagements with agencies. That used to be the majority of what Mirren would focus on with agency teams. It was very new business and pitch focused, focusing a bit more intentionally on driving the organic growth of their existing accounts, realizing that if we can focus our team's energy and attention and our investments here on this existing client that we support, that may be ultimately a better source of growth for us, maybe more predictable. And ultimately, organic growth is the most profitable source of new revenue for an agency, particularly when you compare it to pitching, where you end up doing 6 months of work in 6 weeks for free, and you don't even win the business every time. So organic growth, focused on really digging in with your current client accounts, looking for ways to more strategically expand the agency's remit and scope of work with those brands. We've definitely noticed a trend in agency leadership looking at that with a bit more of a strategic eye toward a more profitable source of revenue growth.
So speaking of organic growth then, how does that actually look like in practice? Of course, there's a lot of strategy involved in all the teams, and you mentioned that it is beneficial in the sense that you're not focusing so much effort on the chasing and all that effort on scrambling to meet those deadlines only for things to fall through. And again, it impacts the team. It's just not a good time for anyone. Can you dive a little bit more into how organic growth strategies change the way teams function? How does that save everyone time and help with success rates of reaching and connecting with prospective clients?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of value in pursuing organic growth and really almost doubling down on that as a source of revenue growth for the agency overall. The benefit and some of the contrast with strategically pursuing organic growth compared to pitches and RFPs is that you already have a foot in the door. You have an existing relationship with this client. The door is open. Hopefully it's a good relationship that with a little more strategic attention, you can expand that relationship and ultimately grow the agency's revenue. So you already have the relationship, which in a pitch you don't always. Perhaps you have access to a decision maker, but that's rare more often than not. It tends to be pretty commoditized. You might just be filler in the pitch to meet procurement quota. So with a look at existing accounts and strategically focusing on those to drive growth for the agency, you've also got the benefit of understanding that client's business. You should at least have a pretty solid foundation for what it is they do, how they make money, what their strategic priorities for growth are. Compared to a pitch, you have to do a lot of that research at the outset. So organic growth essentially gives you a head start. And if you apply that knowledge about the client's business, really understand what it is they need to grow and leverage that relationship that you already have with a few frameworks and some strategic attention on, actually putting a plan in place to grow the account, that revenue is ultimately much more profitable than going and chasing RFPs where you end up sinking a lot of time and costs into it with no guarantee of walking away with new business.
What are different ways to hone in on what works best organically for different types of clients and businesses?
To really drive successful organic growth, ultimately, you need a plan to achieve it. We work with so many agencies and we see so many agencies that have targets, revenue targets, financial targets for each of their accounts. Maybe they have a profit margin increase that they want to hit. Maybe they have a total revenue goal that they want to hit for those accounts. But what a lot of agencies are missing is the plan to actually make that happen. Maybe leadership sets a goal, but how do we actually get there? And a lot of agency teams don't quite know how to pursue organic growth, particularly for those teams who are on the account side of things, account managers, client engagement leadership teams. They often grow up in the agency business and sometimes are inadvertently trained to become yes people. They think that their job is just to be there to make the client happy, to keep things on track, to deliver work, on time, on spec, on budget. And that is part of the job. But what that can lead to is teams that become a little bit too passive. They're not assertively, pushing the client's business forward because they're just there to kind of say yes to the client. That's not the right way to get organic growth, because sometimes you get lucky and a client will give you a next project without you really pursuing it or making a recommendation. But to drive strategic organic growth, you have to be a little bit more assertive as an agency team. You have to be more proactive, and fundamentally, you have to understand your client's business model. You have to understand their category, their revenue channels, their most important KPIs at the business level, not just the marketing level, thinking kind of beyond the scope of what the agency's work might be with that client. Know what that client fundamentally needs at their senior most leadership level. What does the CEO of this client brand care about when it comes to the performance of their business? With that understanding in place, what can the agency actually do to make an impact on those KPIs, on those things that are most important to the client leadership team? So a lot of it comes from just elevating the way that the agency works with the client, being more strategic and focusing more intentionally on business impact and how the agency can actually influence that for the client. So many agencies just lead with their capabilities. That's what they think is going to get them the organic growth. It's, we've got this new, data analytics tool, or we've got capacity on this team over here at the agency, and we think that you might like to buy this service, client. But when you lead with that, when you lead with just capabilities and sort of lead with the agency's perspective, the client is going to look at that as a cost. It's an expense line item from the client perspective. So it's really all about leading with the benefit, and that means business benefit. So to do that, it comes down to really understanding what the business needs and how the agency can make an impact on it. That's what we mean when we say a very client-centric approach. Fundamentally, if you as the agency team, the partner for your client, if you can grow the client's revenue or show them that the work that you're focused on pursuing is intending to grow their revenue, to influence it, to impact it, to play a contribution to the growth of their business, that is what clients will see as a strategic partner, not just a tactical vendor. And that's what agencies want to be to their clients, right? You don't ever want to be seen as just a tactical vendor, because tactical vendors are very easily replaced. The goal is to be seen as an indispensable long-term strategic partner and have the clients really value your agency's perspective on their growth.
Yeah, absolutely love that, because then it's not just transactional. It's not, I sign you on for filling XYZ needs. It takes on more of a consultative and true partnership approach.
Absolutely.
So establishing your value as an agency, showing that you actually care about how that client does in their business. You care about, their growth and all the ways they can reach their audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, any agency can make an impact on soft top of funnel metric. Depending on the work they're putting into market, it can influence things like impressions or reach or website traffic. But you could send all of those marketing KPIs through the roof and not sell another dollar of product, or not move another item off the shelf. Whatever it is that client does, whatever it is that means growth to them in that category, that's where you have to focus. So it really comes down to understanding their business, knowing where the agency can make an impact, and bringing those growth driving recommendations forward to your client so that they see it as revenue potential and not an agency expense line item.
Right. And growth, potential for growth, especially not just vanity metrics, not just nice numbers.
Exactly.
It truly shows growth. Absolutely.
Exactly.
So speaking of something, that whole client centricity and that full focus on understanding what that client needs, what's your advice on, getting to that depth of understanding? Is it just a ton of meetings? It's a lot of research. How does the team come together to get that depth of understanding of clients?
Really good question. And it's a combination of a lot of different things, and it can be done more efficiently than I think a lot of agency teams think it might be. In our training, we really focus on a lot of scalable frameworks and models and exercises that make it easy for agency teams to get unified in the way that they're approaching the work and to get to greater strategic output just more efficiently. We walk through several models that really help agency teams hone in on the most important business KPIs for a client's category, and then identify those KPIs within their scope of work, within the capabilities that that agency has. What could we actually impact here? So some business analysis is definitely part of it, which can take some time, but there are ways to accelerate it. And particularly with organic growth, these are existing accounts. You should already have some of this stuff in-house. You're not starting from scratch if it's a long-term account, an existing account at the agency. So take that foundational knowledge you have about their business, their revenue channels, the category, the competition, the KPIs that mean growth for that client, and build on that. Augment that with a little more research, with some business analysis. Another really useful strategic tool for organic growth is journey modeling. A path to purchase, a customer journey. We work with a lot of agencies implementing these, a really efficient approach that can help you when used diagnostically. A journey model is going to walk you through a target audience for that client and their journey to, whatever it is that action is that the client wants them to take. It may be a transaction. It may be subscribing to something. It may be signing up to volunteer. So what is the action that the client is looking for within their target audience? A journey model is simply put, the steps that target audience goes through to reach that action. And when you outline that journey model, really put yourself in the perspective of the target audience, the steps that they're moving through, and you look at that diagnostically, what that can unlock for you is a really clear sense of where the challenges might exist in that journey that potentially the agency could help the client resolve. And that could mean growth. Or what are the opportunities within that journey? Is there some white space here that the agency could help the client move into and capitalize on, which can also mean growth? So it takes, a client-centric approach in that you're really stepping through the category experience, but it's also audience-centric, thinking about your client's audience, helping the agency agency to kind of put their team in the shoes of the buyer.
Do you have any specific examples that you could share, like case studies or recent agencies or clients that you've worked with where you were able to take them through the customer journey mapping and kind of put all that together into a really solid strategic plan for them to get more organic growth?
In the way that we train, we do breakout groups with our clients, the agencies that we're working with. We have them organized in breakout groups, all of them focused on an existing client account. And we have them create journey models even within the training. In the span of 20 or 30 minutes, you could sketch out a simple journey model and look at it diagnostically, applying some principles from management consultancies to identify those challenges or those points of opportunity in the journey. And then that's really going to give you sort of that fertile ground for new strategic ideation. So the journey model becomes an important first step in outlining your strategy. It's going to help pinpoint the agency's focus where the best growth opportunities might exist. From there, the agency would develop their strategy to actually present that to the client.
These workshops that you put together and gather these agencies together, can you walk us through a little bit about how that works then? Because, if they're able to sit down and have this collaborative environment where in 20, 30 minutes, you can put together this customer journey model and something that's workable, something they can take back with them and start applying and start seeing results. How do you shape these kind of workshops and modules to, bring these type of results?
When we work directly with an agency in custom training, we move through a series of training concepts and principles, and then we have the agency teams apply them directly in a series of exercises. So the entire goal of our training is that it's really practical, applicable, and tangible so that the agency actually leaves the training with assets in hand, prototypes in hand that are going to help give them a head start on the organic growth that they're pursuing or on their pitch process that we're reinventing almost in real time as we move through the training. So it starts by first explaining the concept. We'll walk agency teams through our research. We do a lot of ongoing research through a partnership with Harvard Business Review, which gets us access to clients. So we bring that client perspective into the agency, start with a little bit of empathy about their audience, their clients, the kinds of pressures they're under, and focus first and foremost on understanding and addressing their client's business. So where do they really need to focus? What is it they really need to understand about the client's business? And then we walk through other principles like journey modeling. And so in the training, when we're working directly with an agency, we'll have those teams get into breakout groups, each one focused on an existing agency account, and they will, in the span of 20 to 30 minutes, create a simple journey model. They can be pretty simple and pretty efficient, and you can obviously create much more complex, much more detailed journey models with a lot of layers, a lot more information, augment them significantly. But even a simple journey model can really help an agency pinpoint the best areas of strategic opportunity for that client's business. So the journey model is ultimately about identifying business building ideas that clients are going to want to buy, because that strategic direction is so grounded in the client's category and in their target audience. In contrast to the way a lot of agencies try and present new work or new recommendations to the client, which is, we've got this new capability over here, client, would you like to buy it? That doesn't always land with your clients because they see that as an expense, not as a growth opportunity. So we go through the training principles, and then we have our agency teams apply it really directly to their existing client roster in a series of breakout exercises. So whether it's exercises to more quickly pinpoint the priority KPIs the agency can impact, unlock strategic direction through journey modeling, or even exercises that focus on deck writing and presentation skills, it's all meant to be very applicable and very focused on their clients and the kind of growth that they're trying to pursue.
Sounds like such a productive, experience to go through. I mean, it must be so valuable to be able to sit down and go through these exercises and take back all this value, all these assets back to their agencies.
Yeah, and it's always great to see those aha moments, when we're in training with an agency, whether it's in person or even remotely over Zoom. It's great to just see these things kind of click for agency teams and the light bulb sort of goes off and, nothing in it is rocket science. It's kind of these frameworks that are borrowing from our deep background and expertise in the agency industry, our ongoing research with clients, principles from management consulting, and taking these things that just make it a little bit easier, a little bit more efficient for agency teams to make progress in this and just kind of approach organic growth and the way that they develop and grow their existing accounts in a more strategic way. So it's really fun to see agencies just get it and hear them sort of use the Mirren way as they leave the training.
Just as a slight aside, actually, so how long have you been with Mirren, and then how many agencies or different clients have you seen these transformations go through? If you've been there a while, you must have seen like how the trends have changed, or how agencies used to be all gung-ho about one thing and now we're shifting to another. What have you seen over the years, I guess?
Yeah. Well, I've been with Mirren for about 2 years now. I grew up in the agency industry. So prior to Mirren, I have been in agencies for almost my entire career. I've worked in small and mid-sized independent agencies. I've also worked at some of the biggest holding company agencies in the world, plus had a couple of stints at tech companies in between. So I come from the agency industry, and I've been really in the shoes of the people that I now train and consult with. So I bring my own experience, and I think that relatability, the fact that I've been there, I know what it's like to work in an agency. I know about the pace and how crazy and chaotic it can be. I know what it's like to be in client service. You've got priorities, competing and changing all the time. So I bring that background to the training, which I think helps. It builds credibility with the agencies that we work with and really shows them that the Mirren team gets it. In, the 2 years or so that I've been at Mirren, each year we train hundreds of agencies, whether it's in custom training directly with an agency, group training where we have multiple agency teams joining live webinars and workshops, and through our conferences and events. So we really are able to keep our finger on the pulse of the industry, on the way that agencies and clients are working together, as well as getting that client perspective from the ongoing research we do with clients. And so keeping our finger on the pulse is really valuable because it lets us adapt our training, keep it very current, and make sure that we can really reflect just the current challenges and opportunities that exist in the landscape. And so one of the biggest shifts that we've seen over the last several years is this shift a little bit away from such dogged pursuit of new business, RFPs and pitches, which are so commoditized and competitive today, to a more strategic focus on organic growth. And of course, one of the new trends that we're seeing and having a lot of agencies ask us about is artificial intelligence and how that's going to impact the agency industry. Our agency clients are asking about it. Many of them are experimenting with it, but that is quite a spectrum still of, how that is being led at, the agency, and how clients are asking about it, what clients need from their agency teams as it relates to AI. So that is one that, of course, has been a pretty significant shakeup over the last couple of years and is nowhere near done. I mean, it's evolving essentially by the hour, and it's going to be something to really keep an eye on because it's going to have impacts to the agency industry. And one of the things that we're seeing now is agencies are starting to test and learn. Some are way ahead, some haven't quite started, but I think for those agencies that haven't figured out where to focus with AI yet, they're not too far behind. It's still brand new in terms of generative AI and how it's being put into practice, but it is going to impact things. There are things that you can do with it right now just to make the day-to-day agency work a little more efficient. We are focusing on that a bit in our training, but it's something to start getting ahead of. One of the things that we're counseling our agency clients on now is that it is time to start testing and learning. Create your AI council, get that task force together, be really focused and strategic and intentional in your use cases, but it is time to start developing a plan, time to start putting your heads together at the agency to figure out how you want to leverage AI, what governance we might put in place. If we don't start soon, it's going to be easy to fall behind with such a rapidly evolving technology.
AI is definitely the hot topic across industries, across businesses. So no surprise that it's also creating waves in agency space. So in terms of things that people can do now, what are you seeing? What are you recommending? Are there ways that AI can improve workflows or kind of, get like an early start, early impact? What do you see AI doing for agencies in the short term?
There are a lot of agency use cases if you think about just sort of day-to-day client work or even elements of new business work where AI tools can certainly add impact and efficiency. I will caveat that you need to be aware within the agency of any governance that your agency leadership has put in place around the use of AI tools, certainly any governance or requirements that your clients have put in place around the use of AI, because it varies so much by tool or application you're using. Some of them use that data to train their models, some of them don't. Some of them it's a little bit murkier and hard to really assess. So understand where your data is going and understand what the regulations are. Even if you think about the LLMs, the large language models, and the chat bots that you can interact with, things like ChatGPT from OpenAI, Gemini from Google, or Claude from Anthropic, these major LLM players that are generative AI tools, even things like those chat bots can be used in a lot of day-to-day agency functions. If it's, client email writing, putting something in to have an AI tool improve an email, to make it more focused, to format it better, to make it more intentional and get a better result from whatever it is you need the client to do with that email, or using those tools to generate research, starting to leverage ChatGPT as almost a new strategic planner on the agency team, putting in really focused prompts. And it does come down to good prompt engineering, which I think a lot of agency teams are going to start putting more of an intentional focus on. How do we make sure that we're putting the right inputs into these tools so that we get a more valuable output? But I think research is a huge area of opportunity where AI can make a significant impact for agencies. We've spoken a lot about the importance of understanding your client's business so that you know where the agency can make the greatest impact for that client. And that means you need to do some business analysis. So tools like ChatGPT, and then, of course, there are other AI tools that are even more specifically focused on category and industry research. They can really help augment the capacity at the agency of being able to get that research done, get it done quickly, distill a ton of information really efficiently so that the team, even if they're not researchers or planners, in their day-to-day roles, can accelerate that work. They can get an output that helps them understand their client's business, understand the most important KPIs, really know where to focus much more efficiently than in the old days where you'd have to download 10 different reports from multiple different analyst sites, industry sites, and then scan them all manually. So the distillation of a lot of that research can definitely help accelerate strategic development, can help get to an insight faster potentially. So I think that's a really significant use case where we're seeing AI make an impact within agencies.
It's just so helpful in terms of small things like communication, improving, content, or thinking of ways to structure your research, thinking of things that you hadn't thought of, or giving you new angles to pursue when you do research. So many different use cases that are immediate that are happening right now. So of course, that does lead us to what do you foresee in the future? Where do you think things are going to go, and what are the most applicable use cases for agencies in terms of long-term AI use?
There's a lot of buzz and a lot of chatter about what AI means for the future, not just the agency industry, but for every industry, right? There's a lot of fear and concern about AI going to take jobs. Is AI going to replace people? And ultimately, I'm sure it will in certain industries and certain kind of functional use cases. But I think in terms of AI and creativity, there's still certainly a layer of humanity needed. AI can generate, of course, amazing creative output, creative assets, text to video things that are just mind-boggling. But I don't think we're at the point where it's going to, wholesale replace entire teams of the human ideation behind creative elements. What we're really focusing on with our agencies are more of those day-to-day use cases on sort of the business side of the agency, not as much on the creative side, although a lot of our agency clients, creative departments, are certainly experimenting with AI, leveraging it to turn around concepts and generate ideas faster. Fewer agencies are using it in actual market-facing work, clients or customer-facing work. But with the agencies that we're working with, I think we're seeing a lot of use cases for AI to help accelerate just some of the day-to-day management of client work and new business work. Client email writing, research, strategic development, new business applications, just generating the sort of output for an RFI response could be made easier with a custom trained GPT, for instance. So there are a bunch of day-to-day use cases where with some human insight or human oversight still required, AI can be a tool to essentially augment the agency's team. So it can allow a smaller team to operate like a bigger one. It can help that team scale up their efficiency and their capacity. But there is, like you were saying, there's still a lot of concern about what does the future look like with AI. And if I had a crystal ball, I wish I could tell you. I think the biggest thing for agencies to do right now is just start understanding how they're going to apply it, how they're going to integrate AI into their use cases, and making sure that their teams understand how to use it, getting the teams aligned on the process, the approach, the use cases where AI is okay and where they still need humans to really take the lead.
Yeah, just clearly being able to communicate and lay down that framework that each business, each industry, each agency, whatever it is, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever is most logical and makes the most sense for that particular business. I think that does need to be hashed out on an individual team business basis. But yeah, I guess one way I always look at it is like having an extra, maybe an intern or an assistant or just something else on the side to just help tasks go a little quicker in some ways. A lot of times when I personally use AI and I go in and I have to fact check some things, I'm like, this sounds great, but is this fully accurate? And, of course, you still need the human in there to do more of the actual thinking and not just fully 100% take it.
Absolutely. Yeah. You still have to be cautious. It's a very impressive technology. There are a lot of tools out there that can be used to augment the team and just to help you do more, with less, to do more and do it more efficiently. But yes, the sort of oversight is definitely required. Know the governance around it from your agency and from your client, and be really mindful about how you're directing the AI tool in your prompt. A lot of it comes down to garbage in, garbage out. If you're putting in a prompt that's not super clear or not super specific, you might get something, but is it accurate? Do you need to fact check it? Is it as valuable as it could have been? So a lot of it comes down to just becoming a better prompt engineer, being really specific and clear with whatever AI tool you're engaging with. ChatGPT, for instance, give it a really focused prompt. Tell the AI what it is you want it to do and give it a role, give it sort of a persona. Let's say you're doing business analysis using one of these tools, have ChatGPT act in the role of an analyst and have it analyze category performance for the QSR industry or the automotive industry, whatever category you're focused on. Spell out really explicitly the role, the ask, the audience, how you want that output formatted, what you expect of it. Interestingly, the ideal prompt length is actually around 450 words, which is pretty lengthy. And I think a lot of people are using AI just kind of in their day-to-day, maybe playing with it for personal use or even just experimenting with it professionally. A lot of people aren't going to that level of depth and sort of strategic input on the prompt itself. And that's really what's going to help agency teams get the best value out of these tools. It can certainly augment and accelerate a lot of things, even with a prompt that's nowhere near as detailed or well structured as the ideal, but with a little bit more intentional focus on prompt engineering, I think we're seeing agency teams really start to wrap their heads around how to leverage these tools and just get much more valuable output from them.
And at Mirren or at, the agencies you work closely with, are there, I guess, AI workforces? Like, how are you seeing people come together to establish, the best way to use AI is?
Great question. It's been so interesting to be asking our agency clients that over the last year or so. And we're seeing really different perspectives from different agencies in terms of how they're approaching it. At some agencies, the push into AI and leveraging AI has been led a little bit more bottom up. So individual team members starting to test and learn and experiment and maybe even bring some recommendations or requests. Can we buy this AI tool? Can we fund this? Can we invest in this? Sort of that bottom up pursuit of the technology, bringing that to leadership. At other agencies, it's been more top down, where leadership has kind of looked at the landscape, seen how rapidly it's evolving, and worked to put something in place and give the team a little bit of direction, set that governance earlier before more of the team kind of starts using it on their own and using it in different ways and to varying degrees of success or of risk potentially. So different perspectives there. But I'd say one of the common threads that we are seeing with the agencies that have been immersing themselves with it a little bit longer is this idea of creating an AI council or an AI task force. And that is something that we would recommend agencies start to do to make sure that there is a little bit of a steering committee essentially behind the agency's use of AI. So the typical guidance that you see when you look to create a task force or a council for AI within an agency is that it should be a small focused team. You don't want too many cooks in the kitchen where you get into sort of bureaucracy and red tape sooner rather than later. So small focused team of the right kinds of resources. Certainly someone with a strong technical background, someone from the engineering team or the digital team who understands just the technology landscape of AI as a broader industry. Definitely some leadership or executive sponsorship represented within that task force as well. Someone from business affairs or legal would be a good addition to that as well, just to make sure that there's governance in place for how the AI uses it or how the agency uses AI. Maybe it's augmented with a couple of different subject matter leaders within the agency, maybe a strategy lead, a creative lead, for instance, people who are passionate about the evolving industry and technology and who know that it has real applications for their use case. We've talked a lot about kind of strategy applications. Certainly AI is making waves in creative fields as well. So kind of starting with that focused team. And the other recommendation and sort of what we're seeing agency clients do successfully is to, with that task force or that council in place, be really intentional and focused about the use case that you want to start with. A lot of it comes down to prioritization, because if you don't prioritize and you just go, we're going to create an AI task force and we're going to figure out how to use AI, if you start too broad, nothing's going to get done at the end of the day. So pick one use case within the agency. Maybe it's strategy. Maybe it's day-to-day account management functions, like leveraging it for client email writing and improving the skills of the more junior people on the team. Pick that use case, build out your plan and process and approach for how you'll leverage AI, and then scale it to other use cases. But it really is important to prioritize that focus.
Great advice. Yeah, it definitely makes sense. I mean, hey, AI is so big, but again, as you mentioned, it's still relatively very new and it's changed so quickly. So you think you understand it 1 minute and then the next day it could change. So great stuff. Yes, we're about wrapping up our conversation here. Do you have any final parting words of wisdom? If there was one thing that you want people to take away from this conversation, one piece of advice for agency leaders, what would you say?
We've talked a lot about organic growth, but I think my biggest piece of advice for agency teams applies not just to growing your existing accounts, but also to how you pursue new business. And it is fundamentally to take a client-centric approach to the agency's growth. Stop leading with capabilities and case studies. Stop leading with sort of the buzzword cliches about the agency that every other agency uses, right? Because to a client, things like independent or network agency or award-winning or digital first, they all sound just like cliches and buzzwords, and they're not unique. Those things are not differentiators as much as they might be true about your individual agency. You have to lead with the client's business impact first and foremost. When you can position the agency as the strategic partner that is going to help that client or prospect achieve the business growth that they're looking for, whatever that looks like within their category, that's the sweet spot to be in as an agency partner to your clients. That's when you become a strategic partner that the client trusts and wants at the table for their most important strategic decisions. Those things that are focused on growth and those things that ultimately mean revenue unlocking that the agency can capture a greater share of. So that is where agencies need to focus. It's this shift away from pushing capabilities and case studies, leading with cliches and buzzwords about the agency that are not differentiating. It's the shift from that to really being strategic business partners for your clients, elevating the team's capabilities to do that, and being, more proactive, assertive client leaders, not passive order takers, not yes people, but a team that really has a point of view on the strategic needs of your client's business. That is fundamentally what's going to unlock more growth for the agency.
Amazing. Yeah, lots of gold right there. If you listen to anything, that last minute or two is all you really need.
Yeah, that sums it up.
Awesome. Love that. So yeah, Laura, if our listeners want to get in touch with you or work with Mirren, how would they do that?
And you can reach out to me directly at laura.matthews@mirren.com or go to our website, mirren.com, and reach out to our team that way.
Sounds great. And yeah, so to our listeners, if you found value in this conversation, please be sure to drop a comment with your thoughts, like, subscribe, and share, all that good stuff. Any comments, any thoughts, we are welcome to hear it all, and we will do our best to respond to every piece of feedback. We always appreciate all the feedback, and it helps us bring you more valuable conversations. For more about SiteJabber and our platform, Jabio, you can check out jabio.com, and we'll see you in the next Smart Customer Spotlight. Thanks again, Laura.
Yeah, thanks, Sybil.